TUC Secretary General has told government not to blame the Labour Front for the confusion that has rocked government finances, especially coming from the single spine pay policy.
The single spine pay policy and public sector workers, including teachers, became the subject of incessant attacks by government officials who continue to blame workers for all that has gone on with the finances. This leadership style is not Ghanaian and must be stopped.
Rather, he is calling on government to manage its wage bill, which he describes as inefficient. My name is Brad Nanamfo, and thanks so much for staying there for today's big story. The Secretary General of the Trades Union Congress, Kofi Assamoah, today told government not to blame the Labour Front for the confusion that has rocked government finances regarding the single spine pay policy. Speaking at a conference Tuesday morning, he was emphatic government has been paying lip service to the plight of government workers.
The powers that be continue to pay lip service to the many challenges that confront education delivery, challenges that have been raised time and again by your association. Brothers and sisters, the past 2013 was exceptionally challenging and difficult for workers and their unions, and the country as a whole, economically, socially, and politically. And that impacted negatively on working and living conditions, where the base pay on the single spine structure went up by 10%, workers were confronted with astronomical increase in taxes, tariffs, and other statutory fees. The single spine pay policy and public sector workers, including teachers, became the subject of incessant attacks by government officials who continue to blame workers for all that has gone on with the finances of this country.
The TU boss called on government to find ways of resolving the problem and manage its wage bill, which he said has been inefficient so far.
Indeed, the level of the public sector wage bill had become a bone of contention between government and labor. It is the conviction of organized labor that public sector salary administration, including the management of the wage bill, is inefficient and needed an urgent attention to weed out all ghost names and other undesirable elements in the wage bill. We are not the only people responsible for that huge wage bill. Comrades, in the first week of this year, government has announced increases in several taxes and statutory fees. The 2014 budget proposes to increase the base pay by a small percentage. And indeed, with all these increases, anybody who is talking about wage freeze should review his or her notes.
Right, so government says that about 79% of the wage bill is as a result of the single spine pay policy that came into force to see that workers are well paid. And a lot is also being said, but Labour is saying that do not blame workers for not managing your finances. The Labour front is saying that it is not indeed true that workers, as a result of single spine pay policy, are taking a huge chunk of government's wage bill. We'll try and find out exactly what this means to government, and if indeed there are other things government could do to manage its wage bill instead of just blaming it on workers. Let me speak to John Gachi, a chartered economist and also at the University of Cape Coast. John, thanks so much for your time.
Thank you, too.
First of all, now government has said all this while that workers under the single spine pay policy are indeed taking all of the wage bill. We are told about 79% of revenue is going into paying for the single spine pay policy. Now, workers are saying that don't blame us for that. But there are other loopholes you need to check in managing your finances. Let me pick your brains on this. Is government managing its finances well, or you think that the single spine pay policy is indeed taking a chunk of government's revenue?
Well, it is clear to all of us that the single spine pay policy has eaten very deeply into the finances of the state. In order to ensure good economic governance, it is important for the ministers of the economy to inform us from time to time as to how finances have been in the country. And one of the issues that is very important is the pay policy implementation and its effect on the finances of the country.
Right.
So there is nothing wrong for government informing the entire nation that this is the situation regarding the single spine pay policy. So for me, it is part of the good public financial governance that we want to see in the country.
What about the concerns being expressed by Labour that government is blaming it for the huge wage bill? Is Labour not right?
Well, I don't see how government will be blaming Labour for the high wage bill because the people who are engaged under government did not employ themselves. They did not structure the pay policy for themselves. This was structured by the state, implemented by the state. So if there are some challenges with regard to the implementation, we can all understand the challenges, sit at the negotiation table as stakeholders and discuss what should be the way forward. I do not think that the way forward should be blaming Labour, that they are the cause of the high wage bill.
And the fact that government, for example, Labour says we have too many inefficiencies in managing the wage bill. How can we, you think that we can resolve it, but how do we manage these inefficiencies?
You see, the issues are very complex. That is the reason why I stated earlier on that the way forward is stakeholders' negotiation and engagement to address the peculiar issues involving the single spine pay policy implementation and role on financing. For example, if we want to mention some of the inefficiency surrounding wage bill and then management of labor relations in general in the country, Labour itself will not be happy that those steps should be taken.
Right.
For example, we are all aware that there are some agencies where virtually no serious business activity is going on there. But because of political economic reasons, it is difficult to lay off those people. For which government continue to pay these people every month, even though we cannot match their productivity with the pay that they are receiving under the single spine pay policy.
Right.
I think 2 weeks ago, the minister in charge of transport made it very clear to us in one of the sister stations that every month you have to pay about 778,000 Ghana cedis to contribute to the payment of people working in the railway sector. While we know that many of these people are not engaged in productive activities, there are other steps that should be taken. For example, rationalizing labor in that sector. But I do not think that labor itself will be happy to see a lot of people being laid off as part of the way of managing it. Because if it were to be public sector, that would be the first thing that should be done. So I think that this kind of confrontation and pettiness regarding the issues of labor from government and from labor, I think that is not what the Ghanaian economy, the players in the Ghanaian economy are expecting in 2014.
Right.
Remember, when we have labor and agitation lingering on in 2014, it is not only going to affect government businesses, but it's going to hugely affect the private sector. because a lot of people within the government sector engage in transactions that affect directly what private sector engages in. So we need to be mindful about all these things to be able to protect the upward movement of the economy in 2014.
Right. John, don't drop your line yet. Let me speak to Dr. Mark Esibeyebua. He's a member of parliament for New Juabin South. He's just joined this discussion. Dr. Yebua, thanks so much for your time.
Yeah, thank you.
Now, first of all, let's find out, government managing the huge wage bill, how would you describe it? Efficient or inefficient?
Thank you. Good evening to your listeners. There are a number of issues here. There are inefficiencies all of us are very much aware of. For example, just today I read in the news that the Ghana Education Service had deleted 2,900 ghost names from the payroll in 7 regions. They are yet to conclude the exercise in the 3 northern regions. So clearly, we were paying about 3,000 ghosts for no work done, just with the GES. And I think a thorough exercise will reveal bigger numbers. Again, the Kolebu Teaching Hospital recently told us that they had deleted over 1,000 ghost names from their payroll just at Kolebu. So clearly, there are a number of ghosts on our payroll who are being paid. It is government's responsibility to make sure that we have value for money when it comes to paying wages and salaries. So if you tell me you use, by the way, the government is not using 79% to pay wages of tax revenue. Tax revenue this year, 2014, is supposed to be about 20.3 billion. Wages and salary, that's total compensation, is supposed to be about 10.5 billion. So we are talking a little over 52%. So 52% of our tax revenue goes into compensation of employees. Now, this 52%, therein lies ghosts who are paid for doing the work. It is government's responsibility to make sure that all these ghosts are taken off our payroll. There are government agencies that do not work. We heard Dr. Toniedu, for example, talk about his office doing nothing in all of 2030. That was the Office for Policy Monitoring, something. You see, we get rid of government agencies that do not work because there are people there who are being paid for no work done. You have agencies like the State Enterprises Commission. Seriously, they don't do anything. Diversity and Implementation Commission. All of these agencies exist and they are paid, but they do no work. Then also there are people in the public service and civil service who are more or less redundant because they go to work and they do virtually nothing. So these inefficiencies in the administration of our payroll, we know, and it's government's responsibility to reform the public sector. So
right, go ahead.
Yeah. Again, this idea of a huge wage bill, I don't think that the Ghanaian public sector worker enjoys such better living conditions that we can be proud of. If I look at our teachers, as they are complaining, their conditions of service, nurses, people in the civil service, judicial service, I don't think they are doing fantastically well. Now, if you go to countries like Botswana, Kenya, their public sector workers are paid better than what public sector workers get here. The problem is that our revenue base is narrow. So the impression is created as though a chunk of our revenue is paying wages. If you aggressively mobilize revenue and your revenue base goes up, you will see that, it's only about 30% or 35% of your tax revenue that goes into paying wages and salaries. And that's what's recommended by the IMF, that you should be doing not more than 35% of your tax revenue going into paying wages and salaries. So the problem is with our narrow revenue base, not so much a wider or a huge wage bill that confronts us.
So you totally disagree with the fact that the single spine pay policy has flaws that should be corrected if government wants to check and manage its wage bill efficiently. You disagree?
Yeah, I don't think the single spine is paying workers any astronomical wages and salaries. No, it only came to correct some inefficiencies, equal pay for equal work. That's all that this single spine policy exists to do. So workers are not being paid any astronomical wages, please. And let us not create the impression that the single spine has made workers better off. Yes, it's pulled some people up from where they were, but overall, it is just correcting some inefficiencies. So the government should rather look at its revenue base, it should look at the inefficiencies in the system, and also clean up all these goods that I'm talking about.
What about the fact that government says this single pay policy, there are so many organizations under it who can on their own make work and be so productive to be able to pay themselves, and so we are going to wean them off the single spine pay policy. So certainly there's a problem with the single spine pay policy.
No, that does not mean there's a problem with single spine. What government is saying is that there are agencies that can stand on their own feet. So I would wean them off. If you're a baby, your mom feeds you. At some point in time, you have to start feeding yourself. That's what the government is saying. That there are some agencies, the University of Ghana, for example, it generates revenue. Why should there be subvention from the government? That's what the government is saying. That there are some agencies, about 12 of them, it's already identified, that it wants to wean off the government's payroll. There's nothing wrong with government doing that, but it doesn't go to say that the single spine is problematic. What the government is saying is that I don't have to keep on subventing some organizations. I don't have to keep on bankrolling them. There are some of them that can stand on their own feet, so I'm going to wean them off government payroll.
You mentioned certain inefficiencies. I'll come back for us to look at how we can deal with this inefficiency. But let me also pick some thought from John Kachi, a chartered economist, and is also in this very discussion. Now, John, you mentioned earlier that workers or labor will not be excited at workers being laid off in 2014. But government is saying that the single spine pay policy is simply taking too much. We need to do something about it. Now, government do not want to lay off workers. How do we go about making sure that the single spine pay policy works efficiently and does not take a chunk of our revenue?
I think the earlier speaker has identified some of the issues already. We know that we can deal with some of the issues almost immediately. Issues such as tracking out the ghost, there are things that if those who are managing various institutions are committed to ensuring that the system become very clean, it is something that they can commit themselves to and support government to clean the system as quickly as possible for us to reduce the number of people that are on government payroll. So that is one of the steps. Then the second one deals with, because we largely depend on revenue mobilization to pay wages and salary in the country. The base is small. There are steps that we can take to enhance revenue mobilization. If we're able to be on course by implementing those policies, we should be able to absorb the huge wage bill that we are dealing with right now. So these are the two steps that I think that we can immediately enforce to ensure that we are able to solve some of the problems.
What about the fact that there are complaints of perhaps overtaxation, that the public are being overtaxed?
Overtaxation or high tax rates or many taxes
exactly.
in the system
For instance,
are concerns that have been expressed over and over again. If you're looking at the workings of the Ghana Revenue Authority, you realize that there are many ways by which revenue is at risk. Those loopholes might be stopped. But it seems the old stock continues to reoccur. That is why I think at the beginning of 2013, the communication team at the Trust House hinted that there was going to be a massive shake-up in the Ghana Revenue Authority. We didn't see that. Now, if you realize that over time, your revenue mobilization is suffering or is exposed to risk, it is important that you take a decisive step to shake up the top, to bring a new tone in revenue mobilization and implementation of punitive measures within the system. That has not been done, and that is one of the issues that might be pursued this early period in 2014.
And can government really, the issue of checking, ensuring that these loopholes are blocked, the issue of ensuring that every PESWA gets into government coffers, is it possible, looking at the kind of system we're running?
I think we indicated earlier on in one of your programs that those countries that have increased revenue mobilization, I think I mentioned South Africa, that they were doing very, weak administration in terms of revenue. But when they deploy electronic, they are now doing about 28% of GDP in terms of revenue mobilization. They lock a lot of loopholes by which efficient electronic platforms have been introduced. We are not actually, speeding up the process in trying to ensure that we introduce effective electronic platform in revenue administration in the country. Other countries have linked the revenue administration with the national identification system. We are not able to do that. So these are clear, very simple, straightforward strategies that we can deploy to be able to mobilize revenue. You know that there is an ongoing integration process within the Ghana Revenue Authority. This started about 3 years ago. As part of the system, they have identified revenue leakages within and without. And for within, they have identified clearly that one of the way forward to ensure that revenue officers beyond a certain rank should declare their assets, because they have realized that when you go to the asset-based private asset acquisition by some of the revenue officers, especially those who are involved in operations, it's like they are amassing wealth more than what is coming to the revenue institution. So they have decided that officers beyond a certain rank were going to declare their assets. That didn't happen. So a lot of things are there that we are not doing to ensure that the system become more efficient, progressive, and enhance revenue mobilization.
Right, John, thank you much for speaking to me. John Gachi, a chartered economist there, talking to me on this very particular issue. Let me also wrap up with Dr. Mark Esibeyebua. Now, Dr. Yebua, you mentioned a number of inefficiencies in our system. Now, for me, these are not new. Where do you put the blame? The system that is not running, or perhaps the political will to deal with these challenges? Well, I've lost Dr. Mark Esibeyebua on phone, and he's a member of parliament for New Job. Dr. Esibeyebua, are you online? Right, Dr. Mark Esibeyebua is a member of parliament for New Job in South. We just lost him on the phone lines, but the TUC is asking government not to blame workers for the huge astronomical single spine pay policy that government is paying to workers, but government should rather check and see how it can manage its finances efficiently. And for instance, Labour is raising concerns of issues of ghost names on several payrolls, and this is what Labour is asking government to take a second look at. Dr. Mark Esibeyebua is a member of parliament for New Job in South. Is back on the line now. Dr. Yebua, thanks so much for getting back onto the phone lines. Now, you mentioned a number of inefficiencies, and can government deal with it? These are not new. They have been there in our system for a long time. Is it that the system we're running is itself inefficient, or government lacks the political will to deal with these challenges?
Yeah. For instance, when it comes to the issue of ghosting, at the end of every month, the officer in charge of every MD has to sign vouchers for workers to be paid. So if he signs that there are 9 workers here, and indeed there are 6, there's somebody who is directly responsible for the creation of the 3 ghosts, as they were. So it is the decisive will to go after those who indulge in such practices, because the Controller and Accountant General in Accra does not know that, yes, indeed, there are 9 workers here at this agency, 2 have retired, 1 has passed on. But the officer in charge there, on a monthly basis, prepares vouchers and then signs on. So if we come to conduct an audit and find out that, oh, here there are only 6 people, but for the past 2 years, we've been paying 9 persons, somebody's got to be held responsible for it. Then again, there's biometric data in our payroll management system. It has been done for a number of agencies, even with pension. But it's not sufficient for you to do a biometric system and just leave it at that, just with the voters register. At some point, people die, and so you have to clean it over and over again. So, yes, you have a biometric data system of all workers in the public sector, but then it cannot be a static biometric system. So, over time, you have to go clean this biometric data system that you have for paying workers. Then, government has to be concerned about productivity. If people work in the public sector,
right.
I guess when you work in the private sector, maybe you are working 8 hours. The question you ask is that, is the person in the public sector also working 8 hours? And is the 8 hours documented? Okay, yes, he comes in, he clocks time, and then he's really doing 8 hours. We have to link productivity to the issue, because everybody is paid the marginal product. You cannot be paying somebody for doing 8 hours of work, whereas he's doing 4 hours. So these are issues that can be done, corrected without with little effort, getting some of these done. But overall, this issue of our narrow revenue base should also be looked at. If we make in more revenue, we will just come to realize that we are not paying workers astronomically high wages after all.
Thank you so much for speaking to me. Dr. Mark Esibeyabwa is a Member of Parliament for New Juabin South. And John Gachi, the Chartered Economist, joined us on this very particular discussion. We'll get you more later on at 8 p.m. But this is wrapping up the first part of the show. The interactive segment is just about to take off, and we'll be getting more on the other side of the show. My name is Brian, and if we stay there, I'm coming back in a moment. Let's stay interactive now, but how do you get your ward or son or daughter in the senior high school? Maybe you need to use the phone, but Gladys will tell you why perhaps it will become a problem. Gladys, welcome.
Thank you, Nana.
What's trending today?
A lot of issues are trending on social media, but the one that caught our interest is the ban on the students' use of phones in schools. And I find it quite interesting that a father, a parent, is advocating that they should
get rid of the phones.
No, they should rather be allowed to use the phones in school.
Oh, okay.
Yes, so
that shouldn't be allowed to use the phone.
That's what he's advocating for now. So we'll be looking at that to see how the public also think about it, whether they agree with him or not.
Welcome.
Thank you, Nana. So this is where I get interacted with you, what I most enjoy doing with you. My name is Gladys Osei Oredu. Let me first get you to be part of the JN Interactive. You can join us on our Facebook page and post your comments. So our Facebook address is facebook.com/joynnewsontv. You could also get interactive on Twitter, twitter.com/joynnewsontv. The handle is joynnewsontv or #JNInteractiveGH. You could also inbox us, email joynnewsim@multitvworld.com. You can also send your WhatsApp comments through, and we definitely will be interacting with you right here on Joy News. Today on social media, there are several issues trending, and it cuts across. But one thing that seems to stand tall across all social media platforms is the issue of mobile phone usage amongst students in second cycle institutions. So I know by now you are playing back into your second cycle days. Well, so now let me tell you how the argument started. A deputy director at the Teacher Education Division of the Ghana Education Service, Reverend Emmanuel K. Dadibo, this morning called for a review of the ban on the use of mobile phones by students in second cycle schools. He says that since technology was an integral part of the curriculum, steps should rather be taken to ensure that the challenges confronting students' use of the device were addressed for them to derive the huge benefits. Okay, so he explains further that whether we like it or not, we are in a digital age and there are great opportunities that abound to students using mobile phones in this 21st century. So according to Reverend, because secondary schools do not have adequate computers connected to the internet, students should rather be guided to use their phones to support their studies. Okay, so he also points out that the ban was not to create learning problems for the students, but to guard them from going beyond certain bounds, such as using them to watch pornography and chatting with friends late into the night. You have been speaking to our cameras. Let's hear your thoughts.
For me, mobile phones in second cycle schools, to me it's good. We all know they have its bad side. But to use the bad side, it depends on you, the person. It depends on your background, like how you were trained. But for mobile phone, it's good to be used in the second cycle. Let's say you have questions, you have things to solve that you don't know anything about. The mobile phones now are not like those of the archaic ages. You have the internet on it. You can easily access it to have your research, to do a lot of things that you may not be taught in class. You may be asked, go and do this and this and this and that on your own. You can use the net. Very simple and very easy, convenient on the phone to do your work.
To me, I think mobile phone in the senior high school, it's good to be used over there. Sometimes you might be in school and maybe you need money or anything, or maybe emergency. You should call the house and alert your parents that this is what is happening in the school. So if they can make it possible to come in there, they should forget about the bad aspects and think about the good aspects. If you want to learn, the mobile phone is not going to distract you. And if you don't want to learn, mobile phone is not going to distract you. So I, for one, they should use mobile phone in the senior high school. Thank you.
Mobile phone, it has its good and bad side as well. But if in school, it's best because the students, they know what's best for themselves, so they'll use it to their own advantage. For me, for instance, mobile phone in school, it will help the senior high students back at school to get access to the internet, maybe for research sake.
Easy communications, that's one advantage. But to be banned per se, I think it's not advisable because in this case, now we are in the era whereby even the internet helps us to communicate very well. In a case whereby maybe we are in class and then maybe there's a lecture going on, or there maybe there's an education trend going on, and then maybe you want to find information quickly for maybe your class teacher. You can't go home, but rather you can sit down and then maybe find some answers to the question and then give it back to the teacher or something like that. Negative. The negative aspect is that some students also use it in class to watch pornographic materials and so on, whereby students maybe come to class, they sometimes even take pictures of their teachers and they place it on the social media, they comment on them and then say all sorts of negative attitudes about their teachers, which are not sometimes helping the school in a way.
Varying opinion there, I see. So your comments on our social media platforms will be read soon, so stay glued. We also asked you to tell us which other ways students can communicate with the outside world if the ban is not lifted.
Okay, if they don't use, I know they have phone booths in the school. They should provide them cards so that they recharge every week or so to do their phone calls.
If they don't agree with their mobile phone, they should go for the toll booths or the phone booths and provide the student with a card so that you'll be able to use it and call their parents back at home.
A telecommunication booth whereby either they will be provided with cards and be charged monthly or be added to their fees. termly, something like that.
If they should ban the use of mobile phone, I think that for the second cycle, I think maybe they should establish the use of computers in the school very well, because maybe some students also would want to use that internet to find more information in school, or maybe after school. But some of them are in boarding and the rest. And then in boarding schools, you are not allowed to take your phone to school. So in the case where you are given an assignment to find research or something, you can use the alternative method is by using the internet.
Interesting opinions there. All right, so let's cross over to the newsroom and Skype with Ifwa Akoharisen on the subject. Hello, Ifwa. Hi, Ifwa. Ifwa, can you hear me now? Hello, Ifwa. Hi, Ifwa.
Hi, Gladys. I can hear you.
All right. So I haven't spoken with you like this year. So Happy New Year to you.
Happy New Year to you too. Many happy returns.
All right. Ifwa, tell us, you deal with children and the youth on a daily basis. Do you think we need students in school, second cycle schools, to use mobile phones while in school?
Yes, I think that we do. I agree that the ban should be reviewed, mostly because a clear example is when I was in senior high school some 9-10 years ago, we were using phones. It was an unspoken rule that you shouldn't bring phones to school. We were using these mobile phones. And so I feel like even if you restrict them, they're still going to find ways to sneak them in. So what I think should be done rather is that they should be taught responsibly how to use their phones by giving them boundaries. So let's say you cannot use your phone during classes or prep time, but maybe you can use it between so and so time. Because the truth of the matter is there are times when you will need use a phone, whether it's to call your parents to tell them what you need, whether it's to talk to somebody, your parents, maybe if you're going through an issue. And I remember from some of your comments, someone mentioned use of a phone booth, but are those things still working? I think they're white elephants now, Gladys, sorry.
Let me also try to find out. In your days, you smuggled it into school to use, but when it got lost, you couldn't make an official complaint to your authorities. And so their headache was solved there. They didn't have to look for people's phones for them. And these days, though we have it interesting varieties, it will be a competition. Hello, Ifwa.
Well, I think that is a risk that as a student you would have to take while taking your phone to school. It's a risk that is there. But that people will still how you keep your phones. It is a risk that is there. But in terms of competition, it already is a competition. I talk to students almost on a daily basis, and you have 9-10-year-olds using smartphones, and as long as you have children who come from very different backgrounds with parents who have different financial circumstances, that is going to be there. So it's not something get out of entirely, because the truth of the matter is whether you ban it or not, the students are still bringing the phones to school.
All right, Ifwa, thank you so much for telling us what your views and opinions are on the lift of the ban of the phone's usage in second cycle institutions. Now, your comments first with WhatsApp. Let's look at what you have been posting on our WhatsApp. The idea is good. Students will concentrate on their books. Bless. That's coming from Jima. Okay, so Jima, are you trying to say the ban is good or the lift is good? I wish you had explained it a bit better for us to understand. But Anuwa Shuta says, as for me, banning phones is wrong. What should students use to get to their homes? But of course, I know when we were not using mobile phones, we still got home anyway. All right. So our education people are not serious. That's coming from Baba Yaradu. I wish you had told us what is important. We are in a world of technology, and so the use of technology is good for the students. Please don't stop them. It is for their own good. That's coming from Foster B. All right. So let's look at more WhatsApp comments. Frank says, "Good idea, bravo. It is nice." I see. Which one is nice? The ban, the lifts, or the ban? Well, are they serious about this? Well, Musa Awai, I'm not sure I really got what you meant. How will they do research? But before the phone era, how are they doing the research? Helen, you went to the second cycle, I believe. How are you doing your research? Yeah, he is right. Penolsky Oscar. Okay. Well, let's a bit more, then we shift our attention to something else. Don't ban it, but restrict its use. Ama Trapper, I see. All right. And don't think it will help. Steve Frank, that's your opinion. You don't think it would help you, so you agree it should be banned. Modernization is good. It helps. That's coming from Abu Askia. And I'm surprised at this. Please, I have the kid alone. Okay, Suzanne Deladen. Joy News, you are good. Let the kids use mobile. That's coming from Razak. It's not Joy News allowing the kids to use the mobile. Okay, so this is Ghana for you. Everything has a problem. Provide phones for them. Prince Johnny. Okay. And then maybe last, okay, let me just quickly shift my attention to what you have been posting on our Facebook page. So let's see. We posted on our Facebook, a deputy director at the Teacher Education Division of the Ghana Education Service, Reverend Emmanuel K. Dadebo, has called for a review of the ban on the use of mobile phones by students in second cycle institutions. He says since technology was an integral part of the curriculum, steps should rather be taken to ensure that the challenges confronting students' use of the device were addressed for them to derive the huge benefits. We asked you to share your thoughts with us. So let me quickly go to our previous comments. So whilst it reads, okay, so, well, this is a long one coming from Christian Salvo. Well, in this global world, you cannot develop a nation without technology influence. Therefore, I perfectly agree with the deputy. All right, so you agree. Let me just cut it short so other comments can also be read. Evan says, thanks, sir. Emmanuel Johnny, well, since we are in the world of technology now, I see the use of technology in Ghana as the best and a modern way of bringing beneficiary things to the nation. I would be happy if the government of Ghana can make the use of technology compulsory for every student across the nation. Last hero says this will help teaching and learning easy, because a student in Ghana is supposed to learn 10 subjects, 6 core and 4 elective. I see. Frank Neronati says there should just be a limit to its usage and not a total ban. All right. Ideas. Okay, says I don't think it will help. Bright politician says these ministers don't know what to say in this Ghana again. We are tired of these politicians. They have polarized in Chrome's Ghana. Opoku Bridget says, like, seriously? I totally disagree. Karim Dallo says, well done. Let's find out whether he used a mobile phone during his days at such level. All right, yes, I think it's something I'm also interested in. Kulo says, in fact, it will not bring any good to the students since they will not use it for the right purpose, but use it wrongly. Well, the Reverend actually is saying we should educate them on that. So we need to hear a bit more from the Reverend on this topic. Isaac J. Anna says this will be better for some students since they do not have computer labs for research work. Once again, good idea. Majid says it is a welcoming idea, but the danger is it could bring back should be seriously looked at. Okay, so it's a good idea, but we should also look at the other side of it. Bright Adam says, yeah, this will be better to make researches. But, I'm trying to find out, the days where you did not get a phone to use in school, mobile phones to use in schools, how were you doing your research, and how difficult, how challenging was it for you to do those research? I'm surprised you all think it will help with research. All right, let's go to Hussein Ibrahim, who says, I totally agree with him, because these phones, more especially the smartphones, can assist them in doing research. It is a laudable idea and should be implemented. Philip says, not bad, but they should ensure that it does not affect their studies. Kulo Issa says, there are laptops in the school. Why mobile phones? He should give us a break. All right, so Vincent says, they should help lift the embargo on recruitment. That's more important than this. Okay. Sayodin says, yeah, he's right. And Kulo again says, why this call, Deputy Director? Mohammed Nansia says, opinions are like noses. As such, everyone has his or her own opinion. Those of us who are even matured, we can't do anything with our phones, with us, let alone immature people, you mean. He should come again. He should suggest that a computer should be accessible during instructional hours to improve their knowledge in technology. I tell you, students will not read and will not sleep in the night if they are allowed to use mobile phones. We can't be like the Europeans and the other developed countries. Everything has its consequences. So once we agree, it means we agree to the total package. Yusuf Raja says, I disagreed to this. When students are fully concentrated, what do we see? How much than to have phones in class? He should think of something better. All right, that's another essay for us. Let me just summarize it. Alexander Inti Kane says, that will be a misplaced priority. The technology we're striving for is not the use of mobile phones, but rather the use of IT in teaching and learning in the senior high schools. What kind of review is he advocating for? If the schools are equipped with functioning ICT labs, which have access to internet, that will better the lot of students in their studies. Students will not derive any academic importance or benefits from the use of mobile phones whilst they are in school at the boarding house. The use of phones will be immediately increase. They will immediately increase parents' costs and increase in time mismanagement in school. Students will use precious times to make unnecessary calls, and gradually academic performance will decrease. The deputy director should know better. We, the concerned citizens, beg him. He should not initiate such discussions, considering now that the use of phones are illegal. Just imagine the number of thefts happening in the schools. This will not help our young ones. I totally disagree with him. Well, so those were some of your comments on our Facebook wall. Very diverse opinions coming through. Well, so this is where I'll draw the curtain, but of course you keep your comments coming through because they help us to still continue with our analysis and whatever we bring back to you. So Nana has joined me now. Nana, you heard some of the comments.
Exactly, quite interesting.
Very interesting.
But I will make my opinion known very soon. Right, so let's tell you what to expect at 8 o'clock. The 60-year-old man who defiled a 4-year-old girl is now in the grips of the police and is scheduled to appear before court on Thursday. We are told that the 60-year-old man is being granted bail by a court. We'll get you more at 8 o'clock.
Still on the crimes, the Criminal Investigation Department of the Ashanti Regional Police Command have arrested 3 suspected car snatchers for snatching a Toyota RAV4. So the arrest was made in conjunction with police at Ketekwache in the Volta region. The details, watch out at 8 p.m.
And also to come at 8, a U.S.-based court has dismissed an application by an American-based development company seeking to retrieve an amount of $424 million from the Accra Metro Assembly for a breach of contract. We are told that the company sued the AMA for what it says is misappropriation and conversion of trade secrets, common law fraud, and conspiracy to defraud. And finally, at 8 o'clock,
Ex-President Jerry Rawlings says the corruption that went on under the NPP government and the Mills-led administration caused him sleepless nights. So President Rawlings says the late President Mills' refusal to clean the system and deal with the crimes of the Kufuor administration when the NDC took over power in 2008 was the beginning of increased corruption. We'll, of course, bring you the details at 8 p.m., so don't miss out on that.
All right, then, thanks so much for joining us. We are back here tomorrow at 6 p.m. My name is Bright Nanamfo.
My name is Gladys Osei. Have a good evening.